Much like Filmation's He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, I can still recall the exact moment that I first saw Filmation's She-Ra, Princess of Power. The toys were not yet on the shelves, and in the summer of 1985, Children's ITV ran a small TV spot showcasing all the shows debuting in September. The first image of She-Ra I ever saw was the shot of Adora at Castle Grayskull, sword held aloft. And my first thought, He-Man is now a woman? I genuinely remember being utterly perplexed. Much like He-Man, She-Ra made her worldwide televisual debut over here in the UK on September the 2nd, 1985, though there is a caveat to that, but I'm getting ahead of myself, so introduction sequence. Howdy everyone, and welcome to the Serial Geek TV YouTube channel. My name is James Eatock, and today, as you may have guessed, we're going to take an in-depth look at how Filmation's She-Ra, Princess of Power came to be, including some never-before-revealed information. So, here we go. He-Man's success. The creation of She-Ra, much like the series itself, is the coming together of many talented people from two different companies. Primarily, She-Ra was born out of Filmation's relationship with Mattel. President of Filmation, Lou Scheimer, wanted to do another show to latch onto the back of the astonishing success of He-Man, and Mattel wanted to capitalise on the billion-dollar success of their Masters of the Universe toy line. At the very beginning of 1984, Lou Scheimer was in an Italian restaurant having a dinner conversation with a representative from Mattel and remarked about giving the most powerful man in the universe a sister, and thus it began. Teela's twin sister. By March of 1984, Mattel had learned that 33% of the tens of millions of children that watched the He-Man and the Masters of the Universe animated series were girls. And so, the company decided to create a female action figure toy line for girls. To quote Mattel's confidential memo, circa April of 1984, "This type of product is not currently available and there seems to be a need for it." To some degree, they were not wrong. Initially, the toy line, titled Leela, a 7-inch tall line, was proposed in illustrations by Justine Danza to girls in the presence of their mothers. Across the 7 focus groups, the children loved the design and look of Leela, but the reaction of the mothers was mixed. While some mothers felt that there was a need for an action figure toy line for girls which depicted strong women, others did not believe that it would appeal to their daughters due to it not being feminine. Some mothers objected to Leela's sexiness, her perceived aggressive personality, and felt that Slither, her snake ally, we'll get to him, was too scary. Leela also had a flying steed named, for the time being, Silver Reindeer. Leela's backstory was that she was Teela's twin sister. They were separated at birth to protect them from the forces of evil. Alongside Leela was an archer named Hera, who was, in the focus group, found to be more appealing than He-Man, as the character was handsomer and had the right amount of muscles, unlike old He-Man, that muscle-bound buffoon. As Leela was the twin sister of Teela, that naturally made her the daughter of the sorceress, who was herself proposed to be a part of this toy line. The sorceress was going to have her own falcon named Swiftwind. The girls in the focus group were quoted as wanting the toy of the sorceress to transform into a bird, just like her animated counterpart in the Filmation show. The playset was named Topaz Treehouse, which featured a crystal roof and magic reflecting glass throughout. Ooh. And, of course, there was a villain to round out the cast, Catwoman. Not Catwoman, Catwoman, a precursor to Catra, with the concept sporting a cat mask. Interestingly, Catwoman, who had the ability to transform into a cat, was sent by Skeletor to A. destroy Teela, or B. steal her magic powers, depending on which way the story went. Catwoman also had a steed named Cheetah. With the feedback now in their possession from the 7 focus groups, Mattel had something to work with, but they wouldn't be working on all of this alone. From Hera to She-Ra. As I've said before numerous times on this channel, throughout the 1980s, Mattel and animation studio Filmation had an incredibly strong working relationship. Thus, initially, Mattel's art department, alongside a staff writer or two at Filmation, began developing a then yet untitled series. The primary writer for creating what would become She-Ra, Princess of Power was the legendary Larry DiTillio. Before even a single word of the premise had been written, Larry knew the name he wanted to give the lead character, Hera. Firstly, because it mirrored He-Man's name, and secondly, because Larry was a huge fan of Greek mythology. However, upon further discussions between Mattel and Filmation, a new name was requested, and so, once more, Larry DiTillio tapped into his love of Egyptian mythology, as he had done numerous times in the He-Man series, and came up with the name She-Ra, because Ra was the word for a god. Mattel loved the name, and both companies began working on developing She-Ra, the Princess of Power. At Filmation, Larry DiTillio developed the premise of the animated series, and when looking at the series Bible, it's really rather astonishing how much detail he put into developing the social setup of Etheria. And I quote, "Etheria is at heart a pastoral world, its major occupations being farming and herding. There are mines as well, all of them controlled by the Horde, who are systematically plundering the wealth of Etheria. Fishing is another major occupation, confined, of course, to the seaside kingdoms. There are many islands off the main continent of Etheria that constitute small kingdoms in themselves, or sometimes several islands in a chain will be considered one kingdom. Other occupations include travelling merchants, bards, foresters, jewelers, and of course, magicians." With that paragraph, Larry painted a very specific vision for the world of Etheria. The fact that, for the most part, technology was seen as the enemy in the She-Ra Princess of Power series was a rather bold move by Larry DiTillio and Filmation, given that He-Man and the Masters of the Universe often celebrated the Eternians' use of technology within a fantasy world. That said, Lou Scheimer stated in an interview with Andy Mangels, "We were very careful to say that not all technology was bad, but the misuse of it could lead to ecological or physical ruin." Also, because the Horde had ruled Etheria for a long period of time, not everybody rebelled against it or saw it as evil. This gave the writers a chance to bring shades of grey to the storylines and ancillary characters, so that not everything was a clear-cut choice. As well as setting up the world, Larry and Mattel were conversing back and forth with regards to the characters. Whilst Mattel were only, understandably, interested in creating the action figures and their gimmicks, Larry, of course, had to develop their personalities and their specific powers. In one of the earliest drafts of the series Bible, Larry gave names and character descriptions to a group of Mattel illustrations by the awesome Ted Mayer. This was yet another example of the two companies working hand in hand. Ironically, these characters were never turned into action figures, well, except Tongue Lasher. The premise of the She-Ra series was evident in the opening pages of the series Bible. Again, quoting Larry DiTillio, "There will be action tempered by gentleness, adventure mixed with compassion, characters that will appeal to young girls as role models without losing the interest of boys, rich in the currency of non-violent ideals. The series will highlight high fantasy and vivid characters, action and comedy, drama and gentleness, something for everyone. She-Ra, Princess of Power, will reinforce the fact that one person can make a difference. Man or woman, boy or girl, you have the potential to make the world a better place." When one hears that, one cannot help but be inspired, and it's this inspiration that I believe has led to the longevity of She-Ra in pop culture. Alongside Larry DiTillio, the prolific J. Michael Straczynski contributed to the series Bible too, all under the watchful and approving eye of Lou Scheimer and Arthur Nadel. Lou's daughter Erica Scheimer also contributed certain ideas to the show, as she would become the voice director for the series and had an idea of who she wanted these characters to be. Visualizing the cast. And with the profiles written, the artists at Filmation began developing the look of the characters. Everyone involved knew that the She-Ra series would be strongly connected to the He-Man series, and so the character designs had to retain that look that we had grown so accustomed to throughout He-Man's first season. Developing the look of the animated characters for She-Ra, Princess of Power, was a very different process when compared to He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. With He-Man, Mattel had provided Filmation with their already existing Masters of the Universe action figures, and so, for the most part, Filmation created animation models based on those 5.5-inch pieces of plastic. Yes, in time they were given concept illustrations to work from, but at the show's core were those memorable action figures first and foremost. With She-Ra, there was absolutely nothing in place aside from Justine Danzer's illustrations from February of 1984, and so Filmation's artists looked at Larry DiTillio's written descriptions for the characters and began illustrating. The amount of artwork, precise artwork, created for the development of the She-Ra animated series is truly hard to fathom. Each character we see on screen, and even some we never saw on screen, went through numerous looks as the artists tried to figure out visually who the cast of heroes and villains were. Based on the evidence gathered over the years, Filmation and Mattel sent their designs back and forth, refining the characters. Some may question why the action figures look different to their animated counterparts. The reason for this is simply because the two companies were fine-tuning the designs to the point of what worked best for them. Filmation's streamlined designs would be easier to digest visually in animated form, and Mattel's whimsical toy designs appealed to their targeted female audience. Another thing to factor in were deadlines. Mattel couldn't wait forever with designs going back and forward, as they had a wealth of action figures to mould, mass produce, package and ship to stores worldwide. Whew. And speaking of the villains, for the longest time we fans believed that the evil horde were created solely for the Masters of the Universe toy line and then simply repurposed into the She-Ra animated series. However, back in 2010, when the Power and the Honor Foundation and I uncovered a vast majority of the Filmation development artwork for the She-Ra series, it soon became evident that the evil horde were always intended for She-Ra. It was simply a case that Mattel knew that the figures would not work within the aesthetics they intended for the She-Ra toy line, and thus, in what would be deemed as a fantastic piece of business, the evil horde were placed into the Masters of the Universe toy line. One of the interesting things that I have covered on this channel before is the fact that the writers and storyboard artists for a goodly while were working with no finalised character designs. When looking at the storyboards for She-Ra, especially the earliest episodes produced, we see numerous unique takes on the characters, by far the most memorable being Don Manuel's She-Ra design. And in some scripts, up until the 11th hour, certain character traits, such as the jewel in the palm of Glimmer's hand and Froster's crystalline arm, were still present. That said, even with a wealth of production changes occurring, the episodes ensured that any oddities were eliminated before being shot to film. The amount of talented artists working on character designs for this series was pretty astonishing. Any artists at Filmation that had some free time would contribute their ideas. Diane Keener was the artist who designed She-Ra's final look, and the character model was approved by Lou Scheimer on September the 19th, 1984. Given how much She-Ra development artwork there is, I'm going to showcase a few pieces here because I think they are wonderful glimpses into what could have been. By far one of my favourite illustrations is this one of She-Ra by Charles Zembillis. For those that haven't seen other videos on my channel, Zembillis was responsible for many of the near final designs for the Horde characters and created the look for many guest characters in the He-Man series. What I love about this particular illustration, aside from her wonderfully determined look and action-packed pose, is her headpiece. Rather than sporting a tiara, Zembillis envisioned the Princess of Power wearing a helmet, one adorned with impressive wings, much like my favourite comic book character of all time, the mighty Thor. Here we see an illustration of Adora. Can you imagine if this was the look of the leader of the Great Rebellion? Adora's depiction here is so very different that she could be considered a guest character on an episode of He-Man. Princess Melendy. Also, notice that this particular artist was seeing what Adora would look like with a tiara. A rather lovely design, but it's fair to say a million miles removed from the eventual militaristic garb that Adora would wear. And the same artist took a shot with She-Ra. I always think that the artist was seeing into the future with this illustration, channeling the rather striking looks of Angelina Jolie. Notice that the star previously seen on Adora's tiara is a part of She-Ra's tiara here. And whilst I like this design a lot, I don't believe the tiara is all that flattering, especially when compared to the final character model. Now, this one will shock you. She-Ra, the Princess of Power, sporting long flowing locks and a cape, but observe just how much armour this artist has her clad in. I think one of the best things about She-Ra's final character design, specifically her costume, is that it doesn't appear to offer much protection, and that's because the most powerful woman in the universe doesn't need to be protected. She's all kinds of indestructible. As much as I like this depiction, I think it somewhat undermines her power. This design for Glimmer has always fascinated me. Here we see a near final character model with regards to much of her costume. The basic look is there. However, as well as sporting a different tiara, she has a very different face. The artist here was clearly giving Glimmer a slightly older look, probably in her 20s, as opposed to the look of a teenager that Glimmer would eventually be given. And here's one for Bow, spelled Bow. Bow, you know, not B-O-W, but B-E-A-U. And with this illustration, Etheria's favourite archer looks like a character from Greek mythology. This is one of those cases where a character design is so far removed from what we eventually ended up with that this could easily be utilised as a completely different character. Now here's one that will blow your minds, and probably blew the minds of Filmation animators, because the amount of detail we see in this Castaspella design is insane. Now, of course, the artist knew that the final character model wouldn't be this detailed, but with all of these illustrations, a visual foundation is attempting to be laid. It's just that this particular visual foundation, it needed a bit of work. Charles Zembillis once more, this time with a proposed design for a Horde Governor type character. And when looking at this illustration, it's a crying shame that this character wasn't realised in the series. He looks incredibly menacing and seems to possess great authority. To be honest, I would happily have had this guy as Horde Prime, or at the very least, a Horde Inspector. Pay close attention to the bat symbol on this character's costume. The artist Charles Zimbillis, as I said before, played a big part in the design of the Horde. Around this time he was also designing characters for He-Man, and this is why for the longest time we all believed one-shot villain Batros from the He-Man series to be a member of the Horde, when in truth it was simply down to the fact that a single artist was repurposing a symbol across 2 different shows. Continuing with the villains, here's a lovely rendering of an early Catra design. You can see here that at this point Catra was still being envisioned to walk around holding her mask rather than having it reside atop her head as per her final character model. And you'll notice that in this illustration the artist wasn't naturally seeing Catra turn into a cat, but rather take on a cat-like personality when the mask was worn, unsheathing large claws. I've showcased the artwork of Curtis Kim on this channel before. His designs were something truly magnificent. Yes, they weren't always brought to life in animation, but my goodness, he understood the core of the characters, and his renderings were spectacular. Interestingly, his renderings were clearly popular at Filmation during production, as both this particular Hordak and Shadow Weaver show up in a few very early storyboards. And there you have it, a glimpse into the visual development work that went into the She-Ra series. With the characters finalised, it was time to give voice to them. Vocal talents. For the most part, the cast of He-Man and the Masters of the Universe were hired for She-Ra, Princess of Power. Firstly, this was done to retain a level of continuity between the He-Man and She-Ra series. Secondly, it made sense logistically, as He-Man's final 32 episodes of his second season and She-Ra's 65 episodes of her first season were being worked on at the same time. And thirdly, well, it goes without saying that it was an incredibly talented group of actors. John Irwin, Linda Gary, Alan Oppenheimer, Erica Scheimer and Lou Scheimer were joined by 2 actors who had worked for Filmation before, and these 2 actors would each play their leading roles to perfection. Melendy Britt was cast as She-Ra, the titular Princess of Power, and George DiCenzo, who himself had made 2 uncredited appearances on the He-Man series, was cast as Hordak, the ruthless leader of the evil Horde. Melendy Britt's previous work at Filmation saw her voice the villainous Catwoman in their much celebrated Batman cartoon, but the voice that many of us remember Melendy performing, one that she utterly excelled in, was that of Princess Aura in Filmation's wonderful Flash Gordon cartoon.
I can save you, Flash Gordon.
What about my friends, Dale Arden and Dr. Zarkov?
The Earth Woman is a toy for my father. Your Dr. Zarkov, he is content in his laboratory. But I came to talk about you before it's too late to save you.
Why me?
I will not be questioned. Understand me, Flash Gordon. I can give you life, perhaps even more.
With regards to George DiCenzo, not only had the actor a live-action role under his belt at Filmation in Space Academy, but he had also voiced John Blackstar in a cartoon that many often cite as a precursor to He-Man. Much like John Irwin had done with his dual roles of Prince Adam and He-Man, Melendy Britt effortlessly created 2 distinct voices for Adora and She-Ra. But there was a difference on this occasion. Because it was established that Adora was a strong-willed warrior and former force captain of the evil Horde, there was no need for Adora to play the role as a secret identity, and so, for the most part, Adora was herself. She didn't have to feign cowardice or a lack of interest in the situation at hand. Thus, Melendy Britt had to perform 2 strong voices whilst making them sound independent of one another. And this she did so beautifully that at times it's very easy to forget that the same talent plays both Adora and She-Ra.
And thank you, sorceress. You've given me the happiest moments I've ever had in my life, and a destiny worth fulfilling. I'll always be grateful for that.
Hordak was right. One battle doesn't win a war. And it's a war Etheria's fighting. I'm needed here, He-Man. At least for now.
And with the character of She-Ra, it often felt like Melendy Britt was having a lot of fun with the role, as the Princess of Power would deliver some of her dialogue with such sass, though not for 1 second betraying the character.
Is this how you get girls to fall for you, Hordak?
George DiCenzo, much like Alan Oppenheimer had done with Skeletor, revelled in the role of the villain Hordak. One of the interesting aspects of George DiCenzo's performance is that in the first 5 episodes of the series, Hordak is more calm in his vocal performance, only flying off the handle where appropriate, with much of his dialogue delivered in a cold, menacing way.
What? Enough! Now, for the last time, help me capture Adora and return to the world I came from, and I'll leave you in peace. Otherwise...
However, as the series progressed, Hordak's voice was far less calm and he would fly off the handle within the blink of an eye.
When I find out who dares... You!
Greetings, Hordak. I'm glad to see you.
You bone-headed bog waddler!
In fairness to the actor, this was probably due to the scripts often revelling in Hordak's misery and the fact that, like Skeletor, the writers would have more fun playing the character slightly more comedic than initially intended. When looking back at the series these 40 years later, it's hard to imagine anyone else voicing She-Ra and Hordak. The 2 new additions to the cast were simply perfect, and by far one of the best scenes to showcase the talents of both Melendy Britt and George DiCenzo occurs in the episode Into the Dark Dimension, written by J. Michael Straczynski, as the pair square off.
Why is it that with you, everything always comes down to good and bad, right and wrong?
Because when you get right down to it, every big decision involves knowing right from wrong.
Then I'm in great shape. I don't know right from wrong.
Yes, and when I think of that, it's the only time I feel sorry for you. Now, let's go.
What? No, listen here. No one feels sorry for Hordak. I won't have it. Oh, drat.
Also, as an example of how well the new cast works with the existing cast, there's no better example than the beautiful moment shared between She-Ra and He-Man in the classic episode The Price of Freedom, which demonstrates the wonderful chemistry between Melendy Britt and John Irwin, playing the Twins of Power.
Adam! Hello, brother.
She-Ra, I thought I was dreaming. The villagers, did they get out?
Safe and sound. And from what I hear, thanks to you. Now, what's all this I hear about you're not wanting to leave here?
Well, I think I'm ready now, but I'm sure going to miss this place. I was getting kind of attached to it.
I'll bet. Come on, let's go.
Sis, thanks.
Anytime, brother. Anytime.
Additionally, Erica Scheimer, who had played a few minor roles in the He-Man series, played far more important roles in She-Ra. Firstly, she was the voice of the ruler of the Kingdom of Bright Moon, Queen Angela.
Its other end is on the planet Krytus, but remember, you must return within 3 days or the gate will close, leaving you in Krytus forever.
She was also the voice of another ruler of another kingdom, Froster, a character she seemed to utterly relish during her performances, whether the noble leader...
They just want an excuse to start a war.
We have no proof of that, Captain Braun.
They didn't need proof to accuse us.
Enough! If we are to avoid war, we must keep our tempers under control.
Or the teenager with a crush.
I'll take the polar sea any day. Especially with such handsome company.
But, for me, my favourite performance by Erica Scheimer was that of Imp. She gave the character such life, as did the animators.
I'll tell you what, boss. How about if I go to Bright Moon and find Prince Joel's robo-friend?
Too dangerous.
They'll never know I'm there. Watch, I'll go as a bibble. That's no good. Someone might eat me.
And Erica Scheimer appeared in all but one moral segment as the voice of Lookie.
You know, none of us have powers like She-Ra and He-Man, but we can still do lots of things that are
helpful to others. I'm not very strong, and my magic is just for hiding, but I helped She-Ra and He-Man today. Size is not the true measure of one's worth. Little people like you and me can do big things, so don't let being little keep you from being helpful.
Promoting a princess. In November of 1984, Filmation took out a 2-page ad in the Hollywood trades with He-Man publicly introducing the first image of She-Ra. This heavily distributed ad promised 65 new episodes debuting in September of 1985. Even before the ad saw print, Filmation had already pre-sold She-Ra, Princess of Power, across 50% of the United States, including 20 of the top 25 markets. TV stations saw it as a no-brainer as they could pair the She-Ra series up with the already ratings-dominant He-Man series in a 1-hour block of programming.
It's the Power Hour right here
with my twin brother He-Man and the Masters of the Universe.
And my twin sister She-Ra, Princess of Power.
Twice the excitement.
Twice the action.
Twice the adventure.
And all the power.
Don't miss an episode of the Power Hour.
Weekdays beginning at 4 o'clock.
It's hard to stress just how high Filmation was riding in late 1984. He-Man and the Masters of the Universe had 98 episodes in heavy rotation, and the following year, the She-Ra series would debut with 65 episodes alongside He-Man's final 32 episodes. This would mean that by the end of 1985, He-Man and She-Ra would total a whopping 195 episodes. That level of dominance was simply unheard of in TV animation. As 1984 drew to a close, Filmation decided to get a head start with She-Ra, Princess of Power, and instead of her debuting in September of 1985, she would make her debut many months earlier with an incredibly bold strategy in March of 1985. The movie. As the She-Ra series was being promoted in late 1984, production of the show was already entering the animation stage. As 1985 rolled around, the first 5 episodes of She-Ra, Princess of Power were pretty much complete, and a decision was made. Those same 5 episodes would be edited together and reworked into a theatrical movie, one that would debut to select theatres on March 22nd, 1985, 6 months before the show would premiere on TV, The Secret of the Sword. By the time The Secret of the Sword had left theatres, it had grossed $7.5 million. By no means a blockbuster, but not too shabby for a movie that had its production paid for with the sale of the actual series. Shrewd. To compensate for the numerous edits to the original 5 episodes, the movie's score was restructured in order to showcase the stereo of cinema, and in most instances was far better. A prime example occurs during the opening minutes of Battle for Bright Moon. Shortly after Adora has been captured by Hordak, Skeletor and the evil warriors, we see Queen Marlena crying at the loss of her daughter. However, during this scene, one of the more comical pieces of music plays underneath the dialogue and greatly undermines the seriousness and sadness of the situation.
Assemble my soldiers! We'll level Snake Mountain if need be!
Sire, I know how you feel, but a small group has a better chance of getting Adora back than a whole army.
My father's right, Your Majesty. Who knows what Skeletor will do to Adora if he sees all your soldiers coming?
For The Secret of the Sword, they completely rescored the scene with a wonderfully touching piece of music that works infinitely better and adds to the drama of the situation.
Assemble my soldiers. We'll level Snake Mountain if need be.
Sire, I know how you feel, but a small group has a better chance of getting Adora back than a whole army.
My father's right, Your Majesty. Who knows what Skeletor will do to Adora if he sees all your soldiers coming?
The movie version also corrected a notable visual error that occurred during Battle for Bright Moon. As the heroes confront the evil horde prior to the final battle, we see Queen Angela and the Great Rebellion ready to attack. However, the beautifully illustrated panning shot establishing the vast number of rebels mistakenly shows this scene taking place at night. The movie thankfully corrects this error, showing the same shot take place during the day. When I first spoke to Larry DiTillio in February of 1997, he said to me that he had wished that Filmation had asked him to write an actual movie rather than compiling the first 5 episodes of the series. He cited that a film has to be written with a whole different pace than a multi-part TV show. Over the years, and with fans singing the movie's praises, Larry did eventually appreciate The Secret of the Sword for what it was. The Secret of the Sword would not arrive in the United Kingdom until March of 1986, a whole year later, and it kind of worked because of the way in which the She-Ra cartoon was shown over here. UK debut. She-Ra, Princess of Power, much like He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, made its worldwide premiere in the United Kingdom. Yes, oddly, once more the UK beat the USA to the episodic punch, with the series debuting on September 2nd, 1985. Though, as I said at the start of this video, there is a rather notable caveat. The first episode to air was Duel at Devlin. Why, I hear you ask? Well, the UK decided to hold back on She-Ra's origin. Thus, from September of 1985 until March of 1986, when the movie finally made its debut in UK cinemas, we had no idea how She-Ra came to be. All that we knew was what the introduction sequence had told us.
I am Adora, He-Man's twin sister and defender of the Crystal Castle.
Finally, on March 13th, 1986, The Secret of the Sword arrived in the UK. Better late than never, I guess.
The most incredible adventure of all, He-Man and She-Ra in The Secret of the Sword at a cinema near you.
Knowing my obsession for all things Masters of the Universe, my mother took me to the cinema to see the movie, and we both loved it. I still remember sitting in the theatre and seeing Prince Adam transform into He-Man on the big screen. It's one of those things you never quite forget. To this day, my mother always says how much she enjoyed the music, especially the opening theme song, I Have the Power, which of course is as iconic as the movie itself.
I have the power. I have the power.
Also, before I forget, those opening credits were the very first time we, the audience, were able to associate the names of the actors with their corresponding characters. So yes, we in the United Kingdom eventually received the movie. Interestingly, and maybe bizarrely, the first 5 episodes never aired on terrestrial TV in the UK, and so the first time I became aware that The Secret of the Sword was formed from the first 5 episodes of She-Ra was in 1996, when fellow He-Man and She-Ra fan Owen Sharp popped up online with the only available recorded broadcasts of the episodes. I cannot stress what a voyage of discovery that was, seeing the scenes that had been removed from the movie edit for the first time. Connections. With regards to She-Ra's debut on TV in the United States, that was something rather special. When Filmation sent out their suggested airing for the final 32 episodes of He-Man and the first 65 episodes of She-Ra, they did something rather fantastic, something that the writers Larry DiTillio and J. Michael Straczynski were hoping they'd do. The premiere episode of the final 32 episodes of He-Man, Origin of the Sorceress, aired on September the 23rd, 1985. In that episode, the original Sorceress of Castle Grayskull, Kudak Ungol, shows the Sword of Power and the Sword of Protection to Teela Na, the sorceress we would come to know in the series. The sight of the swords together would be the first and only real reference to She-Ra in the He-Man series, and so, directly after this episode was shown, the very first episode of She-Ra, Princess of Power, into Etheria, premiered, thus creating a strong connection between the two episodes as they aired back to back, in essence like a mini movie. The lore of She-Ra. What She-Ra, Princess of Power is never given enough credit for is just how greatly it expands the lore of the He-Man and the Masters of the Universe series. When the sorceress reveals to Adora that He-Man is her brother, it's a truly monumental revelation, and what follows is just as astonishing as that reveal, when, for the first time, Adora calls upon the honour of Grayskull and becomes She-Ra. We see Castle Grayskull behind Adora, signifying her connection to Eternia, and the majestic crystal castle symbolising her Etherian destiny.
I am She-Ra!
She-Ra, the Princess of Power, the leader of the Great Rebellion, the hope of Etheria, born in this single astounding moment. But what happens next is a scene that truly transcends the series. No episode of the She-Ra series is as important as Reunions, the fourth part of the Sword of She-Ra, or The Secret of the Sword if you prefer. What Larry DiTillio achieves with this script is something truly special. The very first scene with He-Man and She-Ra in the Whispering Woods is unforgettable. The siblings are full of questions and a longing for answers. We see He-Man, the star of his own cartoon, at a complete loss for words. The sorceress provides the answers both He-Man and She-Ra seek through a narrated retelling of the past. We are then treated to a series of beautiful yet earth-shattering clips featuring incredibly noteworthy events in the history of Eternia. We see a young King Randor looking over Queen Marlena and their twin babies, the sight of which brings She-Ra to tears. We also see the exterior of the royal palace, but surrounded by Horde troopers. But by far the biggest shock occurs when we see Hordak entering the royal palace with his favourite pupil, Skeletor, the Lord of Destruction, revealed to be a former member of the evil Horde. But the script does not allow us to catch our breath for a second, as we next see Man-at-Arms saving Adam from the clutches of Hordak, with Adora kidnapped by the ruthless leader of the evil Horde and taken to Etheria. One of these revelations in a single episode would be memorable, but all of these events presented to us within the space of a few minutes? This is simply one of the most striking sequences we ever see in the series. It gives depth to all of the regular He-Man characters. This retelling of events adds 20 years to the lives of Man-at-Arms, King Randor, Queen Marlena and Skeletor. Yes, we have seen memorable flashbacks in the He-Man series before, but what we see in Reunions really highlights that these characters weren't simply living on Eternia prior to the first episode of He-Man, but that they were having adventures, dramatic, life-altering adventures that shaped the world of Eternia itself. The scenario on Eternia that we are aware of is by no means permanent. He-Man has not always existed, and Skeletor has not always been the dominant evil power, because in truth, before seeing this series of flashbacks, we the audience had always subconsciously thought of the He-Man series in terms of a circle with no beginning and no end. The good versus evil plot seemed to be in an endless state of motion, but with Reunions all of that changes. These events dramatically alter our concept of He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, and it's difficult for us to imagine the series without them. In just a few short minutes, Eternia and Etheria are permanently joined forever, and this piece of history becomes the very foundation for all the He-Man and She-Ra lore going forward. This is the one episode that is absolutely crucial to both He-Man and She-Ra, because what would the He-Man and She-Ra series be without the episode reunions? Of interest, two things that do not appear in the first 5 episodes and thus the movie are Orko and the Crystal Castle. This was a conscious decision that Larry DiTillio made when writing the outline for the first 5 episodes. He felt that including Orko during the scenes on Eternia and She-Ra's discovery of the Crystal Castle would make the story far too convoluted, and the script was already juggling so many introductions and character interactions as it was. This would of course later allow Larry to write one She-Ra episode that dealt with Orko, a talent for trouble, and one that showcased the Crystal Castle and She-Ra's first beautifully written meeting with Lighthope, the Crystal Castle, both incredibly memorable episodes in their own right. Adventures on Etheria. Although the adventures of She-Ra were heavily developed to take place on a planet ruled by the evil Horde, with the citizens and heroes oppressed by the incredibly cruel dictatorship of Hordak, the mood of the show would change as the series progressed, with the writers focusing less on the oppression that the rebels suffered. Thankfully, some episodes such as Book Burning and The Price of Freedom would remind the audience just how evil the evil Horde were. Staff writers Larry DiTillio, J. Michael Straczynski and Robert Lamb went through all of the scripts, specifically freelance scripts, to address any possible conflicting issues and rewrite where necessary, bringing about a high level of continuity that not even the He-Man series had witnessed. Though production was wrapping up on He-Man as the She-Ra series was in full swing, many writers and artists at Filmation had grown to love the cast of He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, and so when the opportunity arose, they included characters and references to the cast of He-Man in the She-Ra series, even to the point of including a character such as Granomir, who was simply a guest character on the He-Man show, albeit a highly memorable one. Visually, She-Ra was the strongest series that Filmation had produced at that time. Although, as with He-Man, numerous stock animation sequences had been created in advance, the animators were now incredibly proficient with the look of an action-adventure series, and the storyboard artists had perfected the same-as system they developed for He-Man. This season also saw new directors step into the fray, with storyboard artists Tom Cito and Tom Tataranaowicz bringing their own unique and highly memorable styles of directing to the show. She-Ra's first season not only created new life for the He-Man series, but also established itself as a wonderful cartoon in its own right, with a fantastic lead character in She-Ra, the Princess of Power. Plastic fantastic. Alongside the She-Ra Princess of Power cartoon, Mattel's Princess of Power toy line launched with a great deal of hype. Initially, sales were very much what Mattel had wanted. However, sadly, at the time of She-Ra's launch, the marketplace was far more flooded with toys that had a supporting animated series than what He-Man had initially experienced. Thus, as the sales of Masters of the Universe figures declined, so too did sales of the Princess of Power figures, some would say far too soon. Although toy sales were on the decline, She-Ra's first season proved to be such a ratings winner that a second season was ordered. Me, Myself and She-Ra. Here's something that may surprise a few of you. When I first jumped into the He-Man and She-Ra online community in late 1995, my love for She-Ra was average at best. Because the series had been shown sporadically in the UK from 1985 until roughly mid to late 1990, I had missed a lot of episodes, as many other great cartoons such as the Transformers, Mask, The Real Ghostbusters and of course Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles were flooding the terrestrial airwaves. And even though numerous episodes of She-Ra Princess of Power were released to VHS, I had not purchased many of them. Thus, in 1996, the early days of tape trading, I was seeing episodes of She-Ra for the very first time. Many crossover episodes too. In the year or so that followed, I utterly fell in love with the She-Ra cartoon, as it was obvious that the creatives working at Filmation had put so much into the show. And that's the thing, the more I saw of the She-Ra series, the more I realised just how much it expanded the lore of He-Man. The second season. Interestingly, in the early days of the online He-Man and She-Ra community, we had absolutely no knowledge of a second season of She-Ra. It wasn't until Owen Sharp, there's that name again, popped up online that we became aware of a second season. But get this, we only knew of 14 episodes that had aired in 1986. So imagine our surprise in September of 1997 when a fellow fan, Stephanie Basher, turned up in the community with an additional 14 episodes from the second season. It turned out that Filmation had produced She-Ra's second season across 2 batches, 14 episodes that aired in the fall of 1986 and 14 episodes that aired at the beginning of 1987. It's actually hard to express just how exciting it was discovering that there were even more episodes of She-Ra than we first thought. The second season of She-Ra had a lot to live up to. However, given the wealth of talent and 3 years worth of material behind it, this season turned out to be an incredibly disappointing one. She-Ra's second season rewarded us with some truly incredible episodes, with one to count on, in which the rebels' over-reliance on the Princess of Power is addressed.
Farewell, dear friends.
I don't believe it. She's gone.
And Sweet Bee's Home, which may be one of the most comically suggestive and beautiful looking episodes of the series.
There! That's the last of them.
You were wonderful, He-Man. Just wonderful.
Hey! If you could leave Frosta alone for a minute, He-Man, we could use a hand.
Leave her alone? Why,
In stark contrast to episodes such as The Time Transformer and The Locket, both of which had fantastic premises but failed to deliver on a monumental scale. Even a He-Man crossover featuring Snout Spout no less could not save an episode like Day of the Flowers. Scripts were edited heavily at times to reference the fact that the Horde troopers were robots. Although Season 1 had established them to be robots, Season 2 felt the need to remind the viewer every few seconds verbally that She-Ra and He-Man were punching lifeless figures. Filmation staff writers Larry DiTillio and J. Michael Straczynski and Robert Lamb, all of whom penned memorable episodes during the first season, did not write a single script for the second season, DiTillio and Straczynski having left Filmation, which may explain the season's flaws. Writer Bob Ford and director Tom Tataranowitz were fortunately still a part of the series, and in many ways prevented this season from becoming a complete failure. A notable aspect of the second season was an over-reliance not only on stock animation sequences, but also entire action set pieces. Bizarrely, Shades of Orko even featured a repurposed action scene that appeared in the He-Man episode 3 on a Dare. I even made a video about it some time ago, so check it out. That said, thankfully, an episode such as Sweet Bee's Home treated us to a plethora of new animation, resulting in the most visually rewarding episode not only of the second season, but the entire series. This season is also notable for its last-ditch effort at advertising both Mattel's Princess of Power and Masters of the Universe toy lines. The inclusion of Entraptor, Natossa and Spinnerella worked for the benefit of the series, but the appearances of Comic Cat and the dinosaurs from the forgettable Meteorbs toy line, as well as the 30-second appearance by the Star Sisters, who never actually became toys, were clearly last-minute additions to the scripts. She-Ra's second season proved to be a convoluted yet colourful addition to the series, with the episode Assault on the Hive featuring the final on-screen confrontation of Filmation's He-Man and Skeletor.
arrest you, you miserable cat! Let me go!
Sorry, Skeletor. Looks like the end of the line for you.
You ought to know me better than that by now, He-Man. Back to Snake Mountain!
And Swifty's Baby, an episode that was a worthy end to the adventures of She-Ra. In that episode we learned that She-Ra's steed Swiftwind had fathered a child, a truly shocking and series-altering moment. The final shot of the She-Ra series sees our Princess of Power laughing at the attention paid to her by Swiftwind's excitable child. It's a truly lovely moment.
She-Ra, how can we ever thank you? Thank me? Oh, don't worry about it. This is all the thanks I need.
By early 1987, 130 episodes of He-Man and the Masters of the Universe and 93 episodes of She-Ra, Princess of Power had aired. The 223 episodes continued to air across the United States in their syndicated markets until the end of 1990, with their last notable run being heavily televised on the much-loved USA Network. Legacy. With regards to She-Ra's legacy, head of the writing department Arthur Nadell was interviewed about She-Ra during its production. He stated, "We're trying, as we have done in the past, to portray women as being resourceful and capable, rather than the traditional television idea of having the woman turn to the man for help. She-Ra executes heroic exploits at the head of the band of women." Lou Scheimer himself added, "It wasn't meant to have a political message of feminism to it directly, but it was meant to show that women and girls could do the same types of things boys and men did if they wanted to." Filmation animation coordinator Dori Littell Herrick stated in an interview that the She-Ra series inspired young girls in a different way, to get them to think creatively, in the sense that they could see She-Ra on screen and think to themselves, well, I can draw She-Ra too. And you have to think that the show probably did have that effect on many young women. Early on in the production of She-Ra, Princess of Power, some Filmation staff members voiced their concern as to how they were going to write a girl-friendly series. Larry DiTillio simply replied that it would not be an issue and that they should simply do what they had been doing to that point, writing entertaining stories for everyone, not a targeted audience. That is true equality. Larry asserted that She-Ra could do all the things that He-Man could do. Therefore, if the writers could write for He-Man, then they could very much write for She-Ra. When asked about She-Ra's legacy in 2005, Larry said that it was girl power, and whilst that phrase may be slightly dated 20 years later, it's no less true. When you look at the She-Ra series, specifically when it was aired, it was incredibly rare to see a female-led television show. We had seen it with the live-action Wonder Woman series, but even that character, astonishingly, had never received her own animated series. She-Ra was a true rarity in 1985 and paved the way for many that followed. She-Ra, Princess of Power, was not just a female-led series, but the star of the show was the most powerful woman in the universe. And who better to end this video with than the voice of She-Ra herself. Take it away, Melendy.
For the honor of Grayskull!
And that's it for this very celebratory video. Thank you for watching. Please be sure to like, comment, share and subscribe, and I'll catch you on the next one.
For the honor of Grayskull.
Por el honor de Grayskull. Pura vida.
For the honor of Grayskull.
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 Skeletor claims it's going to be a blast from his freeze ray if we don't say, "For the honor of Grayskull."
For the honor of Grayskull.
Happy birthday, She-Ra. For the honor of Grayskull.
For the honor of Grayskull.
For the honor of Grayskull.
For the honor of Grayskull, we all have the power.
For the honor of Grayskull.
For the honor of Grayskull.
For the honor of Grayskull. And to He-Man, we'll say, by the power of Grayskull. Yeah.
For the honor of Grayskull.
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 The honor of Grayskull.
For 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 the honor
Of Grayskull.
For the honor of Grayskull.
For the honor of Grayskull. Sword to next clip.
For the honor of Grayskull. For the honor of Grayskull.
For the honor of Grayskull.
For the honor of Grayskull.
For the honor of Grayskull.
For the honor of Grayskull.
For the honor of Grayskull.
For the honor of Grayskull.
For the honor of Grayskull.
For the honor of Grayskull.
For the honor of Grayskull.
For the honor of Grayskull.
For the honor of Grayskull.
For the honor of Grayskull.
For the honor of Grayskull.
For the honor of Grayskull. Let's go, Swifty.
For the honor of Grayskull.
For the honor of Grayskull.
For the honor of Grayskull. Happy birthday, She-Ra.
For the honor of Grayskull.
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 For the honor of Grayskull. I am She-Ra.
For the honor of Grayskull.
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 For the honor of Grayskull, I am She-Ra, Princess of Power. See? I really am.
For the honor of Grayskull.
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 For the honor of Grayskull! Stop laughing at me.
For the honor of Grayskull.
For the honor of Grayskull!
For the honor of Grayskull.
For the honor of Grayskull!
For the honor of Grayskull.
For the honor of Grayskull!
For the honor of Grayskull!
For the honor of Grayskull!
For the honor of Grayskull.
For the honor of Grayskull!
For the honor of Grayskull.
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 For the honor of Grayskull. I don't think so.
For the honor of Grayskull.
For the honor of Grayskull.
For the honor of Grayskull. I've just come back from holiday. This is the tidiest room in the house currently.
For the honor of Grayskull.
For the honor of Grayskull. For the honor of Grayskull.
For the honor of Grayskull. I am Hera.
For the honor of Grayskull.
For the honor of Grayskull.
For the honor of Grayskull!
For the honor of Grayskull.
For the honor of Grayskull.
For the honor of Grayskull.
For the honor of Grayskull!
For the honor of Grayskull.
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 By the evil von Grayskull.
For the honor of 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 Grayskull!
For the honor of Grayskull.
For the honor of Grayskull.
Oh, dearie my, it's for the honor, dearie. For the honor of Grayskull.
For the honor of Grayskull.
For the honor of Grayskull.
For the honor of Grayskull. I am Hera.
For the honor of Grayskull. For the honor of Grayskull.
I hear Hera just turned 40 this year. I'm part of the crew that brought her to life, and by the power of Grayskull, I must say, Shira is cool.
For the honor of Grayskull.
For the honor of Grayskull.
For the honor of Grayskull.
For the honor of Grayskull. Times 2.
For the honor of Grayskull.
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 For the honor of Grayskull.